Hello, everybody. Gino Barbaro here, one of the co-founders of Jake and Gino, host of the Wheel of Our Profits. And with me here, I've got my co-partner, co-buddy, Mr. Joshua Rusin. Josh, how are we doing?
Doing well, Gino. We're coming off a high of a weekend we went to the Atlanta Multifamily Summit, got to meet a lot of great people, got to give a lot of knowledge, and just very excited about what we going on. Gino, how about yourself?
I'm doing good. And what I've learned about the weekend event is you have to surround yourself with MIH people. The gentleman who's on the call today, I met him Sunday. We scheduled the podcast 2 days later, met with him. He jumped on the call, made himself accessible. Let me introduce him. His name is Bill Ham. He's the owner-operator of Phoenix Residential Group and Phoenix Residential Management. He's been in the real estate business for 13 years and has created a portfolio of over 1,000 units while growing Phoenix Management to a team of 15 staff members. He has taught real estate for the past 6 years and has dozens of highly successful students. Bill uses his extensive real estate experience to teach his students the real side of real estate. Mr. MIH himself, Bill Ham here. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. One thing that came out of that event is a lot of high-level guys there, and I love events because of that, because you meet people who are in the business. I had told you the word that I learned, the guru doing it. So, Bill, just jump in. Tell me your story. Tell me how you started. Tell me what you're doing now. I'd love to hear it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, other than the great event this weekend, which was good, I hope we have that event more often. Pretty basic story. I had a job like everybody else. I was a corporate pilot, which meant I knew absolutely nothing about real estate or business. Did not come from a financial background, business background, real estate background, just a normal guy with a normal job. And I just realized I didn't need a boss to tell me to show up to work. And if someone didn't need to tell me to show up to work, then I was a boss. And so I saved up $10,000 from the aviation career. I was 28 years old at the time, so I'm going to kind of give you that qualification. I was young, no children, and not married, so a little bit more on the risk side of life. But I'd saved up $10,000. I closed a duplex. Duplex was cash flowing $300, and I took my 10 grand, $300 a month, and walked away from the aviation career on the spot. Turned in my 2-week notice, went into real estate full time, never looked back. I've hit the bottom a few times. I've had some pretty hard go at it, so I don't want to say it was just up and away. But that's basically how I got started. I saw friends of mine flipping houses, and I thought, these guys are making as much on 2 flips as I'm making an entire year working. And I sat there and thought about it. I thought, now these guys are idiots. These are my friends. They were all sitting at the bar drinking and hanging out, and they're making more than I am in a few months. What is wrong with this? And that was sort of my aha moment. And that's when I realized, there's something else I could do with myself, and just pushed all the chips in and went for it.
Now, Bill, I don't want to make the excuse for anybody out there who's got a family, because you said you had no risk. You're by yourself.
Correct.
You're single. So me that had the family had more anxiety and more stress than you did. I had 5 kids realizing that I want to get the hell out of it. So I don't want anybody out there saying, well, you know what? I'm not Bill. I don't have any kids. That should motivate you even more, because time is precious. I'm sitting in the kitchen, my arms folded, I'm pissed off. Intuitively, I know I'm wasting my freaking time and my freaking life. So you better get off your butt and do something.
That's right.
So don't take Bill's thing. Well, he had nothing. He had no kids. He had no
Correct.
risk. So, I just want to put that out there. So
absolutely. And that's why I always tell everybody when I tell a story, yes, I was in a very certain situation, but then again, look what I did. It was relatively extreme. Think about doing your first deal and closing a duplex. That's not extreme. You don't have to quit your job to be successful in real estate. You do have to do real estate. So go get a deal and get started. You just don't have to then be extreme like I did. That's me, and you'll probably figure out as we go through this conversation, I can be a bit of an extreme person. That's just who I am. It's fine. I'm a natural entrepreneur. Not everyone is. You don't have to be, that's just how I got started. But you do have to kind of find out where your comfort zone is and get out of it.
how did you start with corporate aviation, and how did you go into that field?
Yeah, that's a longer story. I was 16 years old, and a family member came in town, and they were a pilot, and they said, "Hey, you want to go fly around?" And I said, "Sure." And I took the controls at 16 years old and was instantly addicted to aviation.
Wow.
It's just one of those things. The second I touched that plane, I thought, this is for me. And I actually took flight lessons and all through high school, and then in my early 20s became a corporate pilot. And went on and started flying for a neurosurgeon that had a medical supply company. So I flew for him for some years.
So do you still fly?
I don't. Well, I do. I am still a pilot. My license is not current, and I haven't flown in a little while. I'm too busy doing real estate and making money to bother doing that, you know. And two, I'll tell you, if you love something, be careful about making a living out of it. You might not love it so much. I loved flying airplanes until somebody told me to do it, and then all of a sudden it kind of changed for me, you know. Not as fun when somebody else tells you.
You sound like Jake, because it's like the martial art guy who opens up the karate studio because he loves it. Once your passion turns into a job, just be careful with that. You should go the other way around. You should become financially free and then do what you love. That's the strategy that a lot of successful
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
I love that. So how did you choose multifamily?
Well, it was a natural progression. I started off in houses like everybody does. I mean, my first deal was a duplex, technically multifamily, but I put that in the category of houses. And I did about 30 houses or so. And I went up to a conference in Atlanta, where I'm from, and I saw someone. It was actually one of those big Rich Dad, Poor Dad events back in the day when they were having all those. They don't really do that anymore. And I saw a speaker off in a side room that was talking about multifamily, and I had two friends of mine with me, and I said, "Come on, guys, let's go listen to the multifamily guy." And my two friends said, "No, there's no way you need. They can't tell you anything. It's all houses. This is garbage." I knew that was bad advice. I went and sat in the multifamily room, and everything that guy said to me was just hitting my buttons, you know. And I knew that was the natural progression to move to a larger business model. It made business sense to me, you know, your economy of scale and having multiple units under one roof and management and all that just made financial and business sense. And so I progressed into it. But at the same time, my first real multifamily deal was only 9 units. I did not go from a duplex to a 100 or 150 unit apartment complex. I started small and grew 9 units. The next one was a 20 unit. The next one was a 27 unit, and then a 44 unit, and then a 100 unit. So don't feel like you have to go from duplex to big. There's typically a progression in there of gaining experience and credibility that took me some years, 4 or 5 years of doing that before I got into the larger commercial.
I'm glad you said 4 or 5 years, because coincidentally, that's how long it takes the average person to get a college degree to get a job.
Right.
And you 4 to 5 years are financially free. So if you're
Right.
willing to do in the next 4 to 5 years what most people aren't willing to do, then you can become financially free. Is that correct?
That's right. That's absolutely right. Just takes a little focus.
You know, so what stops most people in your estimation from getting into multifamily? I have a lot of dispelling objections and disbeliefs. What do you think stops people?
I think one of the biggest, and again, I've been a coach for other people, and I've had a lot of students over the years. And so one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing was not studying the successful students, but studying the failures. Why did they not make it? Those are the ones that I want to study. And to answer your question, what I found a lot of them was either they heard too many sales pitches from people on stage, and they came into the business with a very serious misunderstanding of the amount of work that it takes. You know, when someone's standing there telling you you'll be rich next week, you're one deal away, and you know, millionaire next week, and this, that, and the other, that's possible but improbable. And so it's not that they're lying to you. They're just not telling you enough of the truth that you're armed with reality. And so a lot of these students come in armed with nothing but sales pitches. Then as a coach, I have to kind of sit down with them and start to separate reality from the nonsense they were sold. Some can handle that head adjustment, some can't. Some you know, just aren't cut out to be in business. And when they realize it's a real situation, then they fail. That's my opinion. They come in with a misunderstanding of the business. So I try and teach as honestly and upfront about the business as possible. It's not always motivating, but it's always the truth.
But do you think it's also the scale? People are comfortable doing single family homes. That's what they're normally doing, even duplexes. And they have the mindset of like, oh, you know what? This is what I'm used to. I got to get into multifamily. I can't scale up and get bigger units, because that's what I'm confronted with a lot also.
It could be, and it could be that, again, that too many of these gurus and not durus are telling you, go big quick. And that is a very effective sales pitch, but it's not the most effective business advice for the average individual on the street. And I'm saying go as big as you can, when you can, just go. You know, don't feel like, so I said, you got to go from a house to 50 units to 100 units. Do 2, do 4, do 10. They add up. Today, some of the case may be that the market is quite competitive and prices are up, and you know that, and so that may make it a little more difficult for some people to break in. But there are deals out there. There are deals in all market cycles. You just have to look a little harder sometimes than others. But
It's
they're always
funny. T. Harv Eker told us in a previous podcast, and I love this advice: think big, but start small. Because his thing is, get in the game, get your momentum, take your lumps on a 9-unit deal. You can actually, hey, the septic goes down, you can take care of it. If you've got 2 tenants that evict, you can handle that. You get the experience, you put it on your credibility book, and then you go to the next one. And our journey is similar to yours. We did a 25-unit, then a 36-unit, then we did 136, then we went back down to 22, then we went to 281, then we went back down to 16. So we're all over the place, but we started with a smaller property. So how did you find that 9-unit property? Tell us the story about that first one.
Oh, God, it's been so long ago. That's like 10 years ago. Then, yeah, the 9-unit, it was a foreclosure. So I got started in 05. I quit my job in 05, which we know was a couple years prior to the big hit 08, 09. And I bought that 9-unit, I want to say in 2010 or 2009. It was a foreclosure. It was just out there with all the other foreclosures in the world at that time. And I picked it up pretty cheap. One of the best deals I ever did. Not the best, but one of.
How did you how'd you finance it? Was it all cash?
Yeah, well, yes, all cash, not all of my cash. And I actually did 400 units prior to ever walking into a bank and qualifying for a loan and purchasing a property. So I was able to put together a 400-unit portfolio from private debt, pooling, hard money loans, private funds, seller financing, lease options, all sorts of creative financing. I would take possession of the property, get into the deal, get it stabilized, and then refinance at a bank once stabilized, and then pay off the private debt or the lease option or however I took possession of the asset to begin with.
Wow.
Short answer is just raw creativity. I had no money. I had no experience. I had no choice. Nobody was underwriting me. So it was figure it out or go home. And in being the entrepreneur that I am, I just figured it out. Got a lot of bumps and bruises, but.
Bill, did you get any type of education? Did you get any kind of coaching, mentorship?
Yes, actually, before I did the first duplex, I spent about a year just in private education, books, seminars, anything I could get my hands on, BRIA groups, meetings, anything I could do for about a year to get the courage. And I finally did that first deal. And I have stayed not only in teaching, but in learning ever since. I've been to a lot of the guru seminars. Some were worth it, some weren't, but I know from experience which ones are and are not. And that's the advice I always tell everybody is don't think, do. You can think later on. Just go and try it. If you don't like it, it doesn't work, then stop. But don't sit here and think your way out of taking action. So just give it a shot. And I've been through a lot of programs, a lot of I was a coaching student under a national speaker, and I closed 91 units my first year as a coaching student. So it was real big for me. But not all coaches are held equal. Not all teachers are held equal. So do your research. Do your research.
So what would you tell a person who's listening to the podcast and they ask you, Bill, how do I get into multifamily? What's the first couple of things that I need to do or framework that I need to do to actually take this seriously? Now that I know my why, my why is I just need to spend more time with my family. This soul-sucking job, the rat race, I'm a traffic fighter. I'm giving all my pain points. So I'm all in. I got to burn my ships. Where do I start? Like, what are my first steps?
Well, I would start with the understanding, and let me wax maybe slightly negative for the moment. This is a job. Mm-hmm. Building a business is a job. Number one, if you want freedom, stay at your job. You're free after 5 o'clock. You're free on Saturday and Sunday. You're free on your lunch break. We as business owners are never free. So if freedom is something you're after right now, you might be going in the wrong direction. And I think that might be a good way to set yourself up for failure, thinking that you're going to do a deal or two and then poof, you're just free sitting at the beach. Hold on. That's one of those sales pitches they gave you. This is a business. You're going to build a business. It's not free. It's not easy. It's going to take time. You need to want to do it for more than just money. If money is your only why, it's not worth it. The business can be too difficult. There will be days that you're just not getting paid enough, and you'll probably quit if money is the only reason you're out here. But a more technical answer, one of the first steps for anyone getting started in multifamily is to sit down and figure out what is your net worth. Your net worth and your partners or your immediate friends and family, whoever will join you in business. Take stock of what that net worth is, because that's what you can qualify for a loan. There's no need to go out and look at a $10 million piece of property if you know your net worth is only $100,000. The likelihood you're going to bring the partners together in time to do that big giant deal is not good. That's something that I saw a lot of people burn themselves out with as coaching students. They would come on and they would try and go too big too quick. They weren't able to do those deals. They'd get discouraged and they'd quit. And if they would have just started with a more reasonable range for them, well, reasonable is your net worth, because you can immediately qualify. So don't worry about number of units. If you're worth $1 million, $1 million will buy you a different amount of real estate in Atlanta as it will in Macon, Georgia, or Miami. So again, number of units is irrelevant. Look at how much your net worth is, how much real estate can you afford in your market. Start there.
And that's why you should always, I think, have partners. And if you're going to start raising money, start those substantive relationships today, because people are always like, I'm going to wait till the market turns. I'm going to wait till I have a down payment. It's too late. I mean, you got to start today. You got to start yesterday, start building it up. And that's why it's frustrating. And my whole thing is I wanted the financial freedom. I'm working just as much now as I did with the restaurant, but I'm doing something that I really like, and I'm building multiple streams of income. So if this doesn't work, I got the education. If the education doesn't work, we have a little property management. If that doesn't work, the syndication might kick in. If that doesn't work, we have the brokerage. So from one little crappy property, a crack den, we've been able to amass a really nice business. And that wasn't the end game for us. So I think people have to realize it from there. If you want to control your own destiny, if you want to be your own boss, but realize that you're going to work just as many hours, but there's something about that where you can control your financial freedom and you can control your own decisions. That's the coolest part of being in any kind of business, I think.
It is. But I think too many people just hear the freedom part and not the work part. and that's only half the equation. If you're just searching for freedom and you think there's no work in freedom, you're mistaken.
I love that. So what is your investment strategy? What are you looking as far as any cap rate?
My investment strategy is cyclical with the market. So I pay very close attention to market cycles, the ups and the downs of the market cycles. We obviously don't have time to go into all the market cycle detail here. So, as the markets are rising in value, I will shift over and go into a long-term hold or a flip. So over the last few years, the market has been rising rapidly. So we've been in sort of a flip mode: buy, repair, sell in these apartment complexes. Now, when I say flip an apartment complex, understand that's a 2-year process, 2.5-year process. So flipping a house might be a few months. Flipping an apartment complex is not so quick. So compared to a hold and operate model, which may be upwards of 7 years. So different time frame for anybody that's not quite familiar with commercial property. I want to make sure we all have we're on the same time language there. So over the last few years, holds have been under 3 years. Go in, high renovation, high value add, turn and burn, get the units up, force value, bring it back to the market, sell for capital gains, 1031. Now, because the product is more expensive and there's less opportunities at the moment, we're selling everything, but then whatever I'm going to buy forward is going to be probably about a 5 to 7 year hold. What I want to do is make sure we have enough mortgage to make it through the bottom of the next cycle. What I don't want is, and I've had this happen already in my career, is say a 3-year mortgage or a short-term mortgage that comes due at the bottom of a cycle. You want your debt coming due or refinancing in the upswing so that the values are floating your boat as far as your mortgage. I got in financial trouble when one of my loans came due in 2012, bottom of a cycle. And I had a valuation problem and had to write a check to bump up value on a loan. That was a bad day. So the money's going the wrong direction in that model. So that's why I try and now pay attention very, very closely to market cycles, and my investment strategy shifts with the market cycle. So today I'm telling everybody probably longer term debt, fixed rate, and be prepared to hold and operate. So look at assets that are not too speculative, not too risky, the solid low B, high C type asset that's got some good legs on it, and you can hang on for about 7 years. I think you're in a pretty good safe spot.
Bill, do you ever refi a property out and hold it, or do you just?
I do and I don't. So what we do every time we get ready to sell a property, refi is one of our potential exit strategies. And so we sit down and look at which is going to provide the greatest amount of revenue. Typically, a refi will produce less cash out than a sale. So if you're just looking for cash out at the end, you'll typically get a better price on a sale. And thus far, that's what we found. We look at proceeds from a refinance. We test the market and we get higher sales offers than we do in the refi. So thus far, we've sold everything. But yes, I have refinanced, pulled cash out, and given the investors back a fair amount of their money. But one thing I will make a sidebar here, because this is a big misunderstanding, I think, when people start talking about syndication, is they say, well, I'm going to bring on all these investment partners, wait a few years, refinance, give the investors back their money, and then they all go away and I get to keep the property. Not true. If they are equity partners, you giving them their money back does not make them go away. They just now have an infinite return on their money. If they are debt partners, if they loaned you the money, that's different. They'll go away when you pay them back. But an equity partner does not go away just because you refinance. They just get a really good return on their money.
And there's nothing wrong with that, though. I mean, if
not
you're
at all.
them
Not
out
at all.
and keeping them in, and I mean,
Sure.
everyone wins. We've been able to go refi from community to community bank, and then this last round, we've gone from community bank to Freddie and agency financing. The last deal we did was 15 years term, so we got the term out to 15 years. 4-6 on a green program. You got 5 years of IO. So our strategy is trying to try to hold it because we haven't syndicated it. So I think the mindset's a little different when you own your own as opposed to syndication, because it's your own risk, it's your own money. You're not having to return. Which model do you like better? Do you like holding your own stuff, or you like going with investors?
If I had all the money in the world, yes, I would definitely hold my own stuff. And I think that you should not have partners if you don't have to.
Okay.
There's no, other than social camaraderie, there's no need to have a business partner financially if you don't have to. It's just another opinion. It's another person to deal with. That's not a very realistic point of view. Most people just aren't evergreen in their cash, are they? I mean, they're going to have to go out and find partners. So I don't mind syndication. I don't mind partners at all. Almost all my deals are syndicated. I bring on 1 or 2 sponsor type loan enhancement partners, and then we go out and raise the cash from our network of investors. So almost all my deals are syndicated deals.
I like the partnership, though. I mean, I can tell you a joke right now. We're in the process of writing our second book, and my partner's already thinking about writing a third book. I'm like, guys, can we get the second one done? I don't even want to write the second one, but you need to write it. So partnership has, if you can find the right guys and really gel, they push you. I'm pushing them, they're pushing me. We do our Monday morning huddles. So it's not just financially. If you can find the right guys to surround yourself and create a little mini mastermind, I think you should really go out there and try to do that. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I agree. And one thing that I like is the concept that a lot of people teach about the bus and get the right seats in the bus and the right people in the seats. I think that's a great idea. I love that structure. I was approached by a group the other day that had that structure. They just had a bus with 6 seats on it. So one of the most common things that I see is a misunderstanding of how many seats you need on that bus and how many people it actually takes. Most people will put a team together that is unnecessary, and they have too many people on that team that don't bring enough value to the table. This group approached me. They had 6 people. Two people found the deal. One person analyzed the deal. One person was going to call the realtor. Another person was going to call the banker. And the other person was, going to keep the financial records. I don't remember exactly, but basically I told him, look, one person should do all of these things. Those are not jobs that you want to give 10% equity because this guy pulled out an Excel spreadsheet and analyzed the deal for you, and now he has 10% equity. That's easy to say when we're just talking about percent, but all of a sudden when you write that person $100,000 check because he had 10% and you're going, wait a minute, this person just analyzed the deal on a spreadsheet and I just wrote them a $100,000 check. That's when reality kicks in, and that's when people get greedy, and that's when teams and partnerships will fall apart if the people did not have solid value to begin with. So I think a lot of people just don't understand how many seats they need. And I'll tell you, for most deals, 2, 3 at most. And I said to the one individual, he said, well, my partner here is going to analyze the deal. Why don't you analyze the deal? Well, he's got a financial background. Well, why don't you get one? You're telling me you want me to join your team and you can't even analyze the deal? That doesn't impress me. It's not that hard. And so they just had too many people in the group. And I don't like that. So I like teams. I like teams, just the right team, and you don't usually need as many people as you think.
And it's funny you say that because when you're first starting out, you should bootstrap it anyway. You should really learn all these things. You should really try to create the relationships. And as you get bigger and you start doing those heavy lifts like a refi, it could take you 6 weeks to do a refi. Maybe get an assistant. Maybe get somebody out to help you out. But you don't need a team member for that. You don't need a team member to do an underwriting of a deal. You don't need a team member to calling a mortgage broker. We should be doing that internally. Me and Jake will handle all that stuff.
Absolutely. So that's a social group that came together in the face of doing business, but they're not really. That's that's a mastermind group, and mastermind groups are great. They're just not partnerships. There's a huge difference between signing a mortgage and a mastermind group. Keep it the mastermind group level until you are clear about who you need on that team. And most of the times, I'll tell you, if you're starting off, you're probably wrong as to who you think you need on the team. Probably.
I love that. Listen, I heard that one pain point right in the check. What other big mistakes have you made that you can share with the audience? So maybe
how long do we got a few days? Big ones. One of the big mistakes that I made in business was having too emotional a reaction to failure. It's normal. It's everybody does it, and it's one of the main things I hear in a lot of other entrepreneurs. Oh, I failed. I lost this property. I went here. They took it too personally and never recovered. So I think my problem was I lost some property. Back in 2012, 2013 was sort of my recession. I was a little late, but I did go through the recession. I did lose money in some properties. I spent too much time feeling sorry for myself after that loss, and I missed valuable market timing. So in 2011, 2012, 2013, you should have been buying anything you could have gotten your hands on. Who cares if you're losing money? Who cares if you're going into foreclosure? Who cares if you're in bankruptcy? Buy real estate, because the market timing said in that cycle you should have been buying. And I didn't. I had lost some property. I'd gotten upset. I'd kind of felt sorry for myself, and I sat out for a little while. And that was probably one of my absolute biggest mistakes. I took failure too seriously. It's not that big of a deal. Everybody's going to lose. Everybody's going to lose money. Take it on the chin. Keep going. As I tell the class, look, if you buy one and you get it wrong, buy two. If you buy two and get it wrong, buy 10. You'll get it right eventually. Just don't stop. And I stopped. And that was probably one of my biggest failures was taking failure too seriously.
So have you ever heard the song Let It Go?
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe you should have just let it go, right? What you're talking about is the classic, we learn in life coaching, is the classic energy block called the assumption. You assume you made a mistake and you're going to commit that same mistake again, right? So instead of, when you work with someone who's a life coach, you say to yourself, well, why would you assume you made a mistake last time that your next deal is going to be the same thing? Because I had the same thing come up with me. I bought a mobile home park. The sponsor was, lack of a better word, was a dirtbag. But he had a track record. He was doing it for 10 years. I lost that deal. So I was under the assumption real estate's risky. But I was so motivated to do it, I went and did it anyway. That could have held me back a few years ago when I wasn't serious. So people have to realize the 4 energy blocks: the limiting beliefs, the interpretations, the assumptions, and the gremlins, that little inner voice. So your assumption is really, really powerful. So
that's a good point.
And it took you a couple of years to do it. But if I had you as a life coach, I would have gotten you out of it. You'd have been.
There you go. Well, and since that's good. I should have signed out with you. Since we're talking about assumptions, one of the big assumptions that I made was I assumed everyone would take my situation more seriously than they did. They didn't really care nearly as much as I thought everyone would care. I cared. They didn't care. I lost $150,000 in earnest money on a deal. Cash. Could not raise the capital. Got in, tried to do a syndication. It was the wrong deal. I made some big mistakes there. Lost $150,000 in earnest money. And this was in Atlanta. I thought, no realtor's ever going to speak to me again. I'm blacklisted. I'm never going to do a deal in Atlanta. I failed. Everybody's going to be sitting around talking about me, and I'm this outcast. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. The realtor that I failed with, he cared. Nobody else cared. I look at deals all the time. Everybody brings me deals. It was not that big of a deal. And it was a $150,000 loss. And I'm telling you, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Not to be flippant with money. That's a lot of money. But in the grand scheme of business, that's not a career-ending failure.
Do you know why? Because everyone else does it. You think you're the only one. Other people.
That's it right there.
Okay. And the broker, he knows, because he's not the one raising the money. So he's bringing you the deal. So he knows you're taking a huge risk, and this guy's going to close the deal. And if he doesn't close the deal, he's looking at himself going, well, I don't have the wherewithal to take this deal down. This guy's trying it at least. So I think deep down intuitively, they know it's a hard thing to do, and a lot of people don't execute. It's just right. It's part of business. Right?
Well, the basic conclusion I've come to is memory is short and money's always green. So people that forget, your money will always cash at the bank. So just start over. Don't worry about it.
I love that. How have you been able to build your teams over the years? Because you've got several staff on.
I do. As far as my employee staff, that has just come very slowly. As I got up to maybe about 50 units, and I was kind of managing them myself. First one was I hired my best friend, and he came on and helped me grow and work on it. And then I actually hired my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife later on. Of course, everybody told me that was a mistake, not the wife part, the hiring her part. So hired her, and then just kept adding people as I needed them. Most of the staff has come when we took over larger properties. I also own my own management company. So the 15 staff work in the management division, not the purchasing owner side. That's mostly just me and an assistant. Everybody works on the management side of the company. But I think more applicable is team building for people listening to the podcast when they're going into a new market or they're going into a new area. They always talk about building out your team, and they talk about all the people that you need in the market. I'll give you some contrarian advice to that. Don't waste your time. Building a team in a market like that can confuse you between accomplishment and activity. There's a huge difference between a lot of activity and actually accomplishing something. And so one of the common advice is, hey, when you pick out this new market, you need to build a team. You need to get the accountant and you need your attorney and you need the appraisers and the inspection. No, you don't. You need a deal. That's all you need. Get a deal, work on the other stuff later on. So what people do is they rush into that market. They don't really spend a lot of time looking for a deal. And they're now talking to property managers and accountants and attorneys. Don't do that. You need a deal. And by the way, when you get the deal, those other team members kind of start to line up. Yep. They do. You don't need an attorney 6 months before you ever find a deal to buy. There's no need for that. That's a waste of your time. You don't need to be talking to management companies long before you have a waste of your time. And that gives you a sense of you're accomplishing something when you are not. The only thing you need to do is find a deal. Deal flow, deal flow, deal flow. Without deals, we have nothing. You don't have a deal, you don't need a team. So skip the team part for now. The only team members you need in the beginning are going to be your realtors and the people that will give you the deal flow. Get your analysis down, get yourself in the market, network a little. The attorney and the accountant, those people, they show up. Mm-hmm. Your realtors can refer you to those people. So team building, I think, is something that's oversold to people that are new to the business because it's easy to swallow. It gives them a sense of taking action and doing things. They're just not taking an effective action with that.
Do you mind if I give you my 2 cents on that?
Please do, because I imagine now here. Let me just. I love giving contrarian points of view because it always starts an argument from somebody else. I love it. So go ahead. What you got?
I sort of agree with that, but at the same time, when we got our 25-unit deal, we'd been looking for like 18 months. We finally got a deal. We didn't know anybody. We didn't have a contractor. We had a great broker, but then, I agree with you. We met the inspector. We met the accountant. We met the title company through him. And I agree with that in that aspect. But with that 18 months, I was looking for the deal. If I had known and gotten some other team members, I agree with you. You don't have to focus on that. That's not the main focus. But at least start just making those casual introductions. Sure. Start talking, go to your RIA and do all that. I think a mixture of both. And I agree with you. If you're focusing on team members and not deal flow, you're dead. But what I want to ask you is, why did you start your property management company? Because a lot of guys who syndicate, that's not glamorous to them. We have property management in-house also.
It's like I recommend it and I don't recommend it. I think you should manage property and then not manage property and then manage property again, basically in that order. So in the beginning, I think it's good to manage a small portfolio for the experience and the knowledge. And then I think it's a time killer and an opportunity cost when you have a medium-sized portfolio, which is where I'm at. And then I think you should come back and pick up property management once you have a several thousand unit portfolio and enroll it in-house. That's not how I did it. It's just in retrospect, I think that's probably a better model. I started in property management because I was too poor to hire a property manager. I had a duplex, a couple of houses, no job. I couldn't afford a property manager because I had to live on every little dime of cash flow, which, by the way, was bad. Because really, I should have been putting that money back into those properties. And I wasn't. I was sucking every penny out of it to eat ramen noodles and keep the lights turned on, but not fixing roofs and toilets and things it should have been. So I was really kind of declining the property by being poor and trying to live on real estate. So I would keep your day job a little while. But that's organically how I started the management company, was just having to do it. And at a point in time, I had a thought. I tell people my management company started out as a joke. It was just me, and I had an LLC. And then one day I said, what if I open another LLC and I call it a management company? And I write a management agreement between the first LLC and the second LLC. They're both just me, But guess what? Now when I go into a bank, I can show a management portfolio. I was completely making that up. I don't know. It sounded good to me. So I was like, let's give it a shot.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. 9 years later, I got 15 employees and it's a real company with a real go figure. But yeah, it started off as, and I told all my staff, "Year one's a joke." But basically that's how I got started. It was just playing around, and being poor. So that's probably not the best answer, but yeah, that's how I started.
I don't think you can downplay though. Like we have 1,000 units, and a lot of syndicators out there right now are struggling with management companies because the 7-8%, whereas we're more efficient and we can underwrite deals and we could put that in our pocket or we can give it back to the investors. So there is something to say about that. We fell into it ourselves also. We did the 25 units and we wanted to learn. But then all of a sudden, Jake was able to leave his job a year earlier because he started the management company, and then able to grow, able to get employees, and the employees were able to help us find more deals because he was taking time off of Jake's plate, and able to have those economies of scales, and that's savings. But like I agree with you, it's all based upon what your situation is. If you want to syndicate and grow, maybe you just farm that out. But for us, that was a big part of our success.
Mine too, and it allowed me to learn operationally. So I can see things in numbers and see things in properties that the average investor won't, because they were never actually there in that leasing office, renting and running a property. So it gives you a fantastic experience, but it will slow your growth. So that's kind of the give and take. It's like you can't do it all, and managing.
But that's okay though. You're right. But I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's okay if it slows your growth, because we were at 600. We were at 650 units for a year and a half. We couldn't buy, but we were able to add portfolio. We were able to add systems. Right. We were able to really, really build a business out. And it was like, if we had bought it more and just been what other guys do and be sloppy. So there's pros and cons to that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
agreed. No, yeah, absolutely. Pros and cons. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just it. It's good and bad. And so I can't tell people definitely go be a property manager, but I can't really tell you never manage property either. It's like going to the mechanic and you know nothing about cars. They're going to tell you the flux capacitor's out of blinker fluid, and you don't know any better. So it's a give and take, and that's why I can't say absolutely property management is for everybody. It was for me. It's obviously for you, but that's kind of the both sides of it.
I like that. Last long question before I get to the short answer questions. What's your best real estate investing tip for the listeners?
Best deal I ever did?
Best real estate tip.
Oh, best real estate tip. Don't follow your passion. I think we sort of started to hit on this in some of our conversation. I am not someone that suggests you follow passion in business. I suggest you follow your competencies in business. Passion is a fickle partner. Passion will lead you in and lead you out real quick. And it can leave you high and dry because you can become unpassionate very quickly. And so what I suggest is to sit down and figure out what you're good at. What are you competent at? And what doesn't cause you too much brain damage and you can do comfortably and make a living at it? Because trust me, it's easy to get passionate once you're successful at something. It's hard to be passionate and then successful. It's more likely you're going to get passionate, flake out, go do something else you're passionate about, and so on and so on. So I would say my best business tip, not necessarily about real estate specifically, but business, follow your competencies, not your passion. Passion will follow.
That's funny you say that, because Steve Jobs, and I wish Jake was on the call right now too, because that's his mantra. Jobs said the same thing. Yeah, Steve Apple said the same thing. So people that run out there and do something passionately, I think he just did something that he was doing it when he got really good at it. So you're competent, all of a sudden you get really good at it and you get better at it and you love the results, and then you're results driven.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden you start to grow.
Yeah, you can be passionate and miserable and come home to your family every night absolutely miserable, but you're passionate. Don't do that. That's not good for anybody.
I like that.
All right, so Bill, you mentioned you read a lot of books and getting educated, and you seem like a guy who reads a lot anyways. What would you say your favorite book is that you've read of all time?
Of all times, if we're just asking generally speaking, The Prince, Machiavelli's The Prince, favorite book of all time.
All right, why?
Because the amount of education in that book is staggering, in the implications that it has towards business and society in general. If you take away the negative context that the word Machiavelli has around it, people tend to use that as sort of a draconian negative point of view. If you read and study the book, that is anything but negative. Even the whole quote, better to be feared than loved, is a that quote is taken out of context. You study the material. That's not what he's telling you at all, technically. That's a misquote. He's saying it's better to be feared than loved if you have no other choice, but not to be feared until hated. And so nobody ever adds the rest of that sentence in there, which kind of dequalifies the whole first part of it. And so that's what I said, there's tremendous amount of business and economic knowledge inside that book if you have the wherewithal to read it. So that's just my favorite book. But then if you want to ask business-wise, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that's just because it got me started. That's all.
Well, it's funny because you got Godfather quoting it. You got all those Godfather movies quoting it. They take it out of context and you run with it, right?
They do. And again, if you read the whole passage, that's not what he's trying to tell you. It sounds like you should, make everybody afraid of you. No. That's not what he meant at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know you mentioned your 9-unit was one of your best deals. What would you say your best deal was and why?
Ooh, best deal was this 44 unit I did. It was one of those middle deals. And the only reason I did it was because it's a good story, and the beginning of the deal was so exciting. I was a distressed asset, Macon, Georgia, 2010. So sort of at the bottom of the market. I'll be as brief with a long story as I can. My attorney brought me the deal. His client, it was her property. A little old lady, her husband had just died, left everything to her, left the property to her, but also left her with a bunch of debt. And so basically the little old lady's about to be sued for everything, for all this bad debt. Attorney comes to me and says, hey, I need you to buy the property. And I said, that's fine, but it's 50% occupied. No bank, especially in 2010, is going to write a mortgage on that, especially in Macon, Georgia. And so I said, I need a seller financing. He says, well, I can't give you long. I said, fine, I want seller financing for 90 days. And he said, okay. He said, but I'm going to escrow the title. And he said, so we're not going to go through a foreclosure. If you can't qualify for a mortgage within the 90-day window, I'm going to take the title back out of escrow, and we're just going to give it back to the old lady. And that's how it's going to go. But I'll give you a 90-day shot. And I said, okay, fine. So I jumped on the property. I also negotiated no payments for the 90 days. And I jumped on the property and started collecting rent, turning units. We're taking all of the rent money, throwing it back into units. As I'm turning the units, we're leasing them, we're turning and burning. We come to the end of the first 30 days. We've made good progress. Come to the end of the second 60 days. We're good. We're leasing. We're really gotten occupancy up. We're about 70, 75 days in. Bank's not giving me a loan, and I'm starting to sweat. It turns out that the 90th day was actually going to fall like on a Saturday, I believe, something on a weekend. And so the week before, I think it was a Wednesday, the attorney called me up and said, hey, it's a great run. Property's in great shape. We really appreciate that, yeah. And he said, we really appreciate all that, but doesn't look like you're going to pull it off. So come on in Monday, we'll unravel this thing. Thanks for your time. Give us the property back. And I said, yep, that was the agreement. I'll honor it. That Friday midday, which was day 88 or whatever, the bank called and said, hey, you qualified for your mortgage. So I was literally within about a 24-hour window of having to give this property back after 90 days of back-breaking work. We stabilized it. We were up, we were running, we were full. And I pulled it off in the 24-hour window, refinanced the deal, paid them back. And the whole deal went great after that. But that was just one of my favorites because it was super intense. For that 90-day window, and we came so close to losing it. I don't necessarily recommend everybody go out and try and do that deal. I was in market. I had my team in place. I had my contractors in place. I had my management company in place. I had a lot going on that allowed me to jump on a deal like that. But that's one of my favorite ones just because it was fun.
That's a lot of risk. You have a big set of cojones to do that. Hold on.
It was no risk. Hold on, it was no risk other than personal time and effort. Yeah. So what? Yeah. When you are new and building a business, your time is the last thing in the world you need to be worried about.
Great point.
Your time is worthless. Go to work.
But the assumption is if you lose that, man, you're saying, oh, man, I did all this work on this one deal. I lost it. Maybe the next one, I'm not going to get into the next one. So thank God that didn't come to you. But could you imagine after 90 days doing all that work and then you come up with goose eggs? That would have been heartbreaking.
It would have sucked. But again, I would have come away with a resume and a hell of a lot of experience, even if I'd have lost the property. And that, again, if we're talking about beginning investors and entrepreneurs here, sometimes your education is infinitely more valuable than money made from a property. And so I always look at deals and say, does this add any kind of line to my resume? Does this gain experience or anything of that nature? And if the answer is yes, then I look at the money. Mm-hmm. But I don't go in money first. I go in opportunity first and then money. And that's how I've ultimately become successful. I think too many people are money first when they are new to the business. and wind up with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
No money or experience.
Great point.
I like that. All right, last one. So what project are you excited about right now? What's on the horizon?
Right now, I'm excited about selling everything. The markets are great. We have a lot of property. I bought low back some years ago, and we're selling high like you're supposed to. And so I am actually selling a lot of my portfolio. As we've been talking off this call, I'm going to be cash rich and asset poor, and not much to do. So I'm going to go back to continuing to buy, but I'm also kind of a free agent at the moment. So I'm going to enjoy a little bit of time off, take some of my money and probably some of the beach for a minute. But being a natural entrepreneur, I get bored real quick. So I'm going to be right back out there grinding and looking at new deals. But right now I'm most excited about actually realizing the big check profits that we're all in this business for. I've built a big portfolio. Time to slaughter the fat hog and have a barbecue.
So how can listeners get a hold of you?
Listen, you can get a hold of me. You can email me. It is Bill, Bill, at Phoenix Res Group, which is PhoenixResGroup.com. Bill at PhoenixResGroup.com. Or give me a phone call, 770-714-8122. Again, 770-714-8122. Feel free to text, call, or email any point in time, because I tell everyone I just won't answer the phone if I don't want to talk to you. You can't bother me because I just won't answer. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. If you got questions, things of that nature, I love talking to people. Be happy to answer questions. I'll give you a few. I don't want to encourage anybody to think I'm a free coach. I'm not. But I love talking real estate, and I will certainly help you out if you get stuck with something. Give me a shout.
Jay Bird, 30-second overview podcast. What were your main takeaways?
Yeah, I think opportunity is disguised as work. And when you know that going in, you know what the odds you're up against, and you increase your chances of success. I think also that, right, like, it's very important to get educated, have a coach, and know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Gino, what were some of your takeaways?
Mr. MIH made it happen. I mean, like, not many guys will meet 2 days before and then say, I'm going to jump on a podcast 2 days later, go back and forth with emails. Very few guys will do that. Trust me. They'll have their assistants call, and their assistants and their VA from the Philippines and different time zone. Guys, just do it. Make it happen. Get on the call, network with people, and that's how you're going to get successful in this business. And I don't like to use the word grind because that denotes a lot of hard work. It is a lot of hard work, but it's, I think, a lot of fun. And I think ultimately, if you want to build a business and you want to build financial freedom, and then that financial freedom gives you so many more opportunities. I mean, the fact that I'm doing Jake and Gino is because I had financial freedom. So financial freedom brings with it a lot of other responsibilities, the ability to give back, the ability to grow as a person, the ability to go to the beach at 3 o'clock, then get back and work till 8 o'clock at night. So there's a lot of stuff to this. I'm hoping that Bill comes down to our live event in October.
Absolutely.
Love him to be there because you guys can network and talk to him. I didn't meet him there. That's the other funny thing. I didn't meet him, got texted him. We just, through emails and stuff, we got together, but I'm hoping he's going to be down there. You'll have a chance to speak to him because he's the real deal. He's been doing it. He got himself educated. He has the framework, and I'm just glad and honored that you spent the time with my listeners today.
My pleasure. This is what I do. I love it. My wife's sick of hearing me talk about real estate. I get to vent with you guys. It's great.
You too, huh? So listen, Bill, thanks a lot. We appreciate you having on. You have a great day, okay?
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks.